Good afternoon. I would first like to thank Sydney and the Rhode Island Coalition Against Gun Violence for asking me to speak today. I am honored and saddened at the same time. I'm not standing before you as just an advocate against gun violence or violence as a whole. I'm standing here before you as a mother, a survivor, a victim of gun violence, and not because I was shot, but because I lost my firstborn son, Stephen, to gun violence. On October 2nd, 2011, my son Stephen was shot and killed in a random act of violence after a typical Friday night out with friends. Early Friday, October 1st, Stephen called me as I was pulling in my driveway after work to ask me for a ride to AutoZone to pick up a part for his car. But I was tired and had just gotten home, and I was a little frustrated, so I didn't want to go back out, so I told him no, that I wouldn't take him. I sat in my car for a few minutes and thought about it, and then called him back to tell him I would take him, and he said, "It's okay, Duke," a nickname he called me, that my nephew Kenny was going to take him. I asked him if he was sure, and he said, "Yeah, Ma, don't worry about it." We spoke again that night before he went out because I called him to tell him I was sorry and to talk to him about the car I was thinking about buying. I was telling him how I started signing the papers and then something told me to sleep on it. Stephen told me I deserved a new car and that I should go back in the morning and get it, and he joked about driving it once I got it. I would have never thought that would be the last day that I would hear his voice, and that 3 days earlier would be the last time I would see him alive. In the early morning hours of Saturday, October 2nd, just 2 days before his 24th birthday, as Stephen and friends were leaving a nightclub in downtown Providence, he stumbled and touched a car. There was a group of people gathered around, and one of the young men in the crowd asked Stephen if the car belonged to him, and Stephen said no. And the young man replied, "I know, it's mine." A few words are exchanged, and then a childhood friend of Stephen's, who he called his cousin, told the person, "Look, we're not looking for any trouble, we're just trying to get to our car." Everyone went their own way, not knowing that this wasn't over. As they were driving through the city, the guy they had the confrontation with followed them through the one-way streets and pulled up alongside the car and opened fire. Everyone in the car was hit, and unfortunately, Stephen's injuries were fatal. What had been a night of fun turned into a senseless night of tragedy. My son had been murdered because he accidentally touched a car. Truly a senseless act of violence. Stephen was a bright young man with a great heart and an illuminating smile that could light up a room. Stephen attended Hope High School as well as Exeter Job Corps. After attending Exeter Job Corps, Stephen gained employment at Bannister Nursing Home, where he was employed until his untimely death. Stephen liked to play basketball and video games. He enjoyed music and loved to draw. He was very charismatic and a good communicator. Stephen enjoyed spending time with his family and friends, but he loved spending time with his daughter, Nevaeh, most of all. Stephen was a good person, never one to look for or start trouble. During the last year or two of his life, Stephen had begun to mature and grow and recognize the importance of a good education. One day, when going through some of his belongings, I came across two items. The first was a poem he had written entitled Life, and the second, a list of goals. Both items reflected his intention to better the future for himself and his daughter Nevaeh by furthering his education. This made me smile and broke my heart at the same time because the opportunity for him to attain his goals had been stolen from him forever. I recall the last time I saw him and Nevaeh together. They were having a conversation and he was stressing to her the importance of getting an education. This senseless act of violence has left me with a gaping hole in my heart and life. Stephen's daughter, Nevaeh, without a father, and my son, Andrew, without his best friend and big brother. A part of my life was stolen the day my son's life was taken. It breaks my heart to know and see the pain in my son, Andrew, that he has suffered over the last few years. Watching Nevaeh grow and ask questions about her father is oh so bittersweet. She was robbed of a life with her father, the one man in her life who thought the world of her and would do anything for her. I am proud of the man he had grown into and truly heartbroken over his terrible tragedy. I didn't allow this horrific experience to make me bitter or fall apart. Instead, I put my heart and energy into honoring and remembering him and so many others whose lives have been lost to gun violence. As a way to honor Stephen and bring awareness to the gun violence in our city, one of his cousins came to me with the idea of doing a 5K, maybe about a month after his death. I agreed, and I did some legwork with the help of many, and the first Stephen K. Latimer Memorial 5K, Families Against Violence, was held on Saturday, September 29, 2012, just 2 days shy of his one-year anniversary. The 5K has since taken on greater meaning. The 5K allows families, friends, and communities to come together to honor loved ones lost to violence while offering a healthy activity for families to enjoy together. I have since established the Stephen K. Latimer Memorial Foundation, which is a registered nonprofit organization. The funds raised from the 5K and any donations made to the foundation go towards scholarships to Rhode Island youth who have lost a parent, guardian, or loved one due to an act of violence. To date, we have awarded scholarships to 8 Rhode Island students from Sophia Academy and Bishop McVinney School, both of which are located in Providence. The foundation has also collected gifts and made food basket donations to families in need during the holidays. Education was important to Stephen. He had just started the application process to the nursing program at CCRI prior to his death. I believe that by providing these children, the unsung survivors of violence, with scholarships, we are giving them the opportunity to consider education as a formidable option to achieve success in the cycle of violence and ensure healthy, productive living. When one goes through something so tragic and life-altering, it's easy to become depressed, angry, and even bitter, but I chose to do something positive. Stephen would have wanted that. So as long as I'm able to, I will continue to do my part in making a difference in the lives of our youth, our communities. Even if my efforts make a difference in the life of one child, I have done my job, and Stephen's life was not taken in vain. It has been 3.5 years since Stephen's death, and the first time I was asked to talk about how his death affected me was just about 2 weeks ago by Sydney. I told Sydney it's very difficult for me to actually sit down and put my thoughts and feelings down about Stephen. I've really only spoken about the incident, the 5K, and the foundation. It was at that moment that I realized I haven't allowed myself to actually focus on what I'm feeling as far as the emotional impact losing him has had on my life. As I move forward, I will continue to do my part in making a change in the lives of our youth and maybe even speaking more, and in time I will find a way to allow myself to focus on my feelings and the emotional impact of losing Stephen. Thank you, and may you all be blessed.